All right. Greetings to everyone who will be viewing this later. My name is Miko Marsh. I'm one of two editors for the Poetry Society of Virginia newsletter. Gray Hughes, the other editor, and I'm sure you'll be hearing and seeing him periodically. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Mr. Bill Glose, a member of PSV who has served in multiple capacities, helped countless writers, and contributed quite a body of work to the writing world. And for those of you who have never met, worked with, or seen him in action, you get to learn about him now. And I'm going to read a brief bio that hits on some of the reasons Bill has made an impact. Bill Glose was born into a military family, moving frequently overseas, but found home at Langley Air Force Base in Virginia. An ROTC Hokie, Bill dreamed of being a fighter pilot, but found himself jumping out of planes instead of flying them as a paratrooper and later a ranger with the 82nd Airborne. Active duty found him in Panama and then the Gulf Wars as a platoon commander. An engineer by training, Glose went into manufacturing as a civilian, but devoted his life to writing in 1998. From freelancing his first contributing editor gig, Glose never stopped learning about photography, writing, people, and places. His literary laurels include publication in The Sun, The Writer, Grit, The Missouri Review, Rattle, and Narrative Magazine. He has earned the F. Scott Fitzgerald Short Story Award, the Main Street Rag Poetry Book Award, and the Virginia Press Association First Place Award for Sports News Writing. Further, he has won the Robert Bausch Fiction Award, the Heroes Voices Poetry Award, and served as the Daily Press Poet Laureate. A prolific writer, Glose has published several books and two chapters of poetry, edited one short story anthology, and has directed and filmed movies about various poets. Glose is an active member of the Virginia Poetry Society, has served as festival chairman and vice president of the Eastern Region. He gives back to the poetry community by judging high school poetry contests and filming poetry events across the Commonwealth, which he then screens on his YouTube poetry channel, Virginia Poetry Online. And we'll get into some of his other accomplishments, including his most recent award shortly. But first, I'd like to welcome Bill Glose. Thank you for
Thank,
taking time to speak with us today.
thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm so glad to be here. And thanks for the beautiful introduction.
I will admit that I was glad to hear that this interview was requested. I've heard you speak at Hampton Roads Writers Conference, Williamsburg Book Festival. I've seen you at different events behind and in front of the camera. Read some of the work that was shared, such as the poem that was written to be read backward and forward. That really kind of left an impact on me. I was like, who is this guy? And, he's got like all these form poetry things down pat, in fact, you were one of the first people I saw at the start of the centennial this year. You were coming up the stairs and letting us know which presentations would be in each room. So before we start talking about the many hats you worn, tell us how you became a full-time writer, like how you even got into that.
Right. So I always wrote stories when I was a kid. That was how I had my release. I still have some little books that I sewed together from when I was a kid. And then I took the practical route, getting the engineering degree and the military and factory life, and trying to get something that was stable. But when I was working in the factories, it was long, arduous days, and I would come home at night. And the writing that I would do at night was where I got my joy. And so, I said, uh, I need to explore if I can do this, for a career. So I left the factory world and jumped into the freelance world. It was tough there for a few years, but I started getting some gigs that were, regular paychecks, and it all came around.
Yeah. I'm always I'm glad to hear those stories. Um, but a lot of times, that fear of the unknown, like, will I be able to do this? Am I going to be able to follow my passion? You know, is this really just kind of something in my head? Can I make this work? And I guess it's also kind of encouraging hearing that uh it wasn't like, well, I stopped here and then I just, everybody knew me like immediately. It was like everything, it just fell into place and was just perfect. There was some work
Oh
in
yeah,
there.
a lot of work.
So I saw that you were an editor with Virginia Living for about 17 years. Um,
Right.
written 61 articles for super lawyers,
Mhm.
over 50 articles for Coastal Virginia Magazine, and you still write technical articles. But
Mhm.
you also write short story fiction and various styles of poetry. So, like, how did these develop? What came first? And, do you feel like they influence each other? Or do you have to keep them separate? Like, I am only working on this right now. Like,
So I don't exactly separate them that way, but I do feel like each genre helps strengthen your writing in the other genres. What you learn in fiction about pacing and plot and storytelling, can then carry over into articles where you're focused on getting the message across and delivering information, which then crosses over to poetry. When you can bring those things into your poetry, the poems can be so they can be so crisp and have a lot more power. So I think they all they all help each other. Um, for the poetry, I started out writing exclusively fiction and nonfiction, but when I got back from war, some of my friends told me that I should use poetry to explore some of my feelings I saw and did over there, and so I started doing that. I kept the poems hidden in my drawers for a long time before I finally got out to an open mic and shared them. And I was so nervous because I thought, everybody knows me as a, kind of gregarious, fun-loving guy, and I was, worried if I show this darker side of me, what people would think of me. And they, two of one, they were all very supportive. So that's what got me into poetry, and I haven't turned back.
man, um, I I had made a little collage. Y'all can't see them all here. It's like, of all the books that he has here. Let me see if I can pull up the list. So I have we have All the Road Men, Postscript to War, Virginia Walkabout, Half a Man, Personal Geography, Child of the Movies, The Human Touch, Memory of Spring, and you edited 10 Twisted Tales.
Yep.
So I wanted to make sure that um people could, like, you only see the name Bill Glose. It's like there was something else. But if you pull up a search, you will find them. So they're there, and you can also find them on his website where he has a lot of information, multiple resources available. Um,
Yeah,
so
on the website, I try to. So at the top of my website, which is billglose.com, there's a link there that says for writers, and that one, all the information I've collected over the years, I think it's helpful for writers to try to put that out there. So there's no paying for anything or anything. It's just information that's out there.
and that is part of the good heart of you. We appreciate it. um, so we had touched on poetry. How did you come to join and stay with PSV? I'm assuming you were a lifetime member because I see you all the time. Um,
Yes,
and
I am a lifetime member. Nancy Powell and Ann Chalaski, they were the two that encouraged me into poetry, to use my poetry to write Half a Man, and then to continue and get involved in events. And when I found going to some local events in Newport News that I got such joy and support from them, I wanted to see what else was out there. I said, "Oh, you got to come to Poetry Society events." They started getting me to go to Williamsburg and Norge and other places, and that's when I started filming the events. I had a YouTube channel for my personal stuff, and I started filming some of the events, and some people were glad to have video proof of the event, something they could share with friends. And so then I created the channel, Virginia Poetry Online, and I've been going at that. I checked the hit count for it this morning before this interview. It just crossed over 99,000 views. So I'm closing in on the 100K mark. So help push it over, everybody.
Yes, that means go see some of the stuff that you missed out on, y'all. So you have been in various roles, including Eastern Region Vice President, President pro tempore. I think that you were given a plaque this year for that position. You've been a contest judge. I think I saw that you judged this year's North Poetry Book Award.
Yep.
Workshop presenter, poet laureate panelist. Because you're one of the poet laureates, videographer, and one who maintains and uploads videos across the state, and probably a lot of other things that we've just missed out on. So, I guess for people who are new or still trying to get, their footing, trying to figure out where they fit in, what would you suggest that they could maybe increase their feeling of belonging in PSV or
Yeah.
really?
So I would say, come out to the events. In the newsletter, there will be information about what's going on in the Poetry Society. Each region has an annual event that they put on, and then there are other events held at coffee shops and everywhere else around the state. James Wilson puts out a newsletter with information about that. If you reach out to one of the Poetry Society VPs, whoever the VP is for your region, they can uh, get you the information. But I would say, come out to some events, and you don't even have to, plan to read when you first come out. You can just come out and see what it's like, get a feel for it, and if you feel, comfortable, then start sharing your own work. And as I experienced and everyone else has experienced, there's so much support and love at all of these events, and so I that would be my suggestion.
All right. So, to your newest edition of your collection of book awards, All the Ruined Men won the 2023 Library of Virginia Fiction Award. Could you tell us about this book and winning this award? And by the way, I don't know if you're aware, but this is currently Amazon's editor pick for their website. So,
Uh, yeah, so um, I found out that I was a finalist for the award about 2.5 months before the ceremony. And at the same time, Barbara Kingsolver, her book had just recently been named an Oprah Book Choice. So I was thinking, oh, well, she's got this in the bag. And then just a couple of weeks later, she won the Pulitzer for her book. So, you
no.
know, so so I was thinking, okay, there's no chance of me winning. I'm just going to go and really enjoy myself. I rented a tux. I went out there. I had several friends came with me, and we just had a ball. We hopped and hopped with everyone. I did not prepare any speech. 2 years ago, I was a finalist for this prize in the poetry category, and I had prepared a speech for that one because I thought there was a chance I could win. This time, no chance. As a matter of fact, I was talking with one of the other finalists in a finalist in the poetry category beforehand during the cocktail hour. And she asked, so what category are you in? I said, I'm in fiction. Oh, I'm so sorry. Any other
Oh
year,
gosh.
any other year, you'd have a chance. So, I mean, everybody just thought it was a fait accompli. And then when they did it, they got to the announcement. They had the big screen, and they had the three finalist books up there, and our pictures, and they talked about our books, and they talked about us, and then they brought out an envelope, and they did it Oscar style. And they opened up the envelope, and the winner is. And so I was turning in my seat to see, okay, what's Barbara Kingsolver going to have to say? And Bill Close. And so my mouth was agape and I was shaking as I walked up the steps. And it was just a tremendous surprise and a tremendous honor. I'm still agog over it all. But the thing is, so when I wrote the two poetry books, Half a Man and
Mhm.
Postscript of War,
Yeah.
both those deal somewhat. Half a Man is entirely about my own personal experiences in the army and in war, and then Postscript of War is kind of half and half, my experiences and others. But as the war kept going on, and the same soldiers kept getting sent over time and again. I thought that uh, I wanted to write something longer and with more depth and show how difficult it is on these soldiers when they come home. When they go over there so many times, the war zone becomes their norm, and when they come home, that's what is foreign land. And so that's what this book explores. There's a squad of paratroopers who have been to war in Iraq and Afghanistan numerous times, and now they're adjusting to life as civilians. Each of them is having distinctly different problems.
Okay. Yeah, because that, and I think with us being a lot of having a lot of military here, um, and a lot of us are military families, we have an idea, but a lot of times we don't have anybody to verbalize it.
Yeah.
So having that to see it and to have those pieces, whether in fiction or in poetry, where we can get different views of what's going on. Um, I think that it helps with that understanding and even with compassion or being able to, have an understanding like what is it that you need from support from me or, what's going on at this point, you know, um, like I see it periodically around Memorial Day and Veterans Day, but I'm like, they've been vets all year long. Can we get
Yeah.
a little bit more on here? So yeah, I appreciate
And that was a big thing for this. I mean, this was such a passion project, and I do think it's such an important message. So I'm glad that the book is getting this attention, and that it is getting out there.
so um because I'm gonna ask if you get a chance to like if you like to pick out a couple sections that you'd like to read, but I am curious about this Virginia walkabout.
Hmm.
Um, could you tell us how this came about and what this encompasses and where you like how you even decided that you were going to start here and go there?
Yeah. Well, I've I grew up on military bases overseas. My dad was in the Air Force, and I didn't have a real sense of home until he came to his last station, which was Langley Air Force Base, and we settled in Pocosson, Virginia. So Pocosson became my home, and around me, the people who had grown up there, they'd known each other all their lives. They knew Virginia all their lives. This was all new to me, so this was my home. And as I lived here longer, kept thinking, there's so much I haven't seen. I need to get out and explore. And at the time, I was doing all this writing work for magazines, so I thought I can do some stories as I go along the way. And so it was wanting to get out and explore the state that's been my home and learn about the people, the places, and along the way, it was a journey of self-discovery too, because a lot of things changed with my attitude. So much of my attitude was like a sideline reporter. I was the guy standing on the sides taking notes, writing about what everyone else was doing instead of getting out there and doing it myself. And so along the way, one of the you rules I came up with is that anything that interested me that I came across, I had to participate in. And so along the way, I jumped from a cliff into a water-filled quarry. I went to a bison ranch and had a bison. I went to a nudist colony. I flew in a World War II airplane, and so just tons of great adventures and experiences. And like I said, just a whole different attitude on how I approach life. Just attitude of saying yes to things instead of being cynical and seeing the angle in something.
So about how long did that take you?
It stretched over a couple of years. So I did this back in 2010, 2011. And if you recall, back then they had this thing called Snowmageddon. So I was out in the mountains in the winter when Snowmageddon started. And so I had to put a halt on it for the remainder of that year, and I picked up again in the spring. But yeah, so it stretched out a couple of years. Also, if you go across the bottom of Virginia, it's 500 miles from the coast to the point where the Cumberland Gap goes across into the sea. However, I walked. I wanted to cover all the regions. If I just did that, I would just see a very small portion of Virginia. I wanted to experience every region, and so I zigzagged all over, and I did 1,500 miles, enough to go halfway across the country. And I crossed every one of the state borders. And as I said, it was a grand time.
You have really done the things that people have thought would be cool, but didn't really have the heart to get out there and do.
Yeah, and sometimes, if I would have thought about all the logistics and the difficulties in doing it, that might have kept me from doing it. But I just got out there and did it. And then as it just kept accumulating and pushing on, I came up with a plan as I went. But I think if I would have thought too long and hard about it, because it take a lot of time, it took a lot of costs, uh, but it was the adventure of a lifetime. And the book, so I have Virginia Walkabout, which is poems that came from that experience. But I'm currently working on Wayfarer, which is my memoir about the experience.
That's going to be exciting. That's going to be exciting. And I'm sure you have um, more award-winning pieces from there too, because yours, like the list just keeps going. So I was wondering, would you share a piece from
Okay, and did you want some of my
therapy?
poetry or something from All the Ruin Men?
Whatever you're feeling at this point.
So, since those are the two things we talked about, I think I'll share one of both. Ooh. You mentioned form poetry. I think you made it sound like form poetry comes easy to me, and it does not. It is very difficult. But I have found that form poetry can be a great. Um, it pushes you into areas you wouldn't expect. There are lots of pleasant surprises that come up, and so I did this one called "In the Land of Mermaids," um, and in Norfolk they have the mermaids on parade, and former PSV president Terry Cox Joseph, he made three of the mermaids in the Mermaids on Parade. So she's a noted artist as well as a poet. Uh, but so this is In the Land of Mermaids. The Swiss were first to show their city's pride. Zurich's leonine seal come to life in a parade of painted fiberglass statues promenading outside. Chicago took the artistic idea worldwide. O'Leary's cows marching the lakefront arcade in a mooing procession of Windy City pride. America was enamored, and every city tried to replicate the concept with creatures that displayed a regional theme they could exhibit outside. Baltimore's crabs, Eugene's ducks, Gloucester's beehives. Norfolk's streets soon teemed with mermaids from Chesapeake Bay, ideal for waterman's pride. One's tresses bound by fishnet, another's dyed ocean blue, sequined with shells. They masquerade, oblivious to ogling foot-bound throngs, swim outside in painted costumes, all leaning to one side. Outstretched in postures that can never be unmade, this is how shoremen proclaim maritime pride, enticing the uncatchable to pose on pedestal side. Villanelle, a very difficult form for me anyway. I went through that poem went through so many evolutions to get it to its final form, but it has repeated lines with minor tweaks in it that go throughout the whole poem. And then for this one, yeah, I think, yeah. So I'll just read this real short piece from All the Ruined Men,
Okay.
which is
I'm still excited that it's an editor's pick. Okay. I just
yeah, and I saw right there on the background of your screen, it's saying that it's out of stock and more are on the way. So
oh no, it has, well, it says it's like 14 left, but my head is, so it's
only 14 left in stock. Okay. I was saying out of stock. I like that.
but
Well,
I guess people are like, okay, we'll go check this out. Because editors picks, they stand out.
oh yeah.
And it's you see it, but it's not often that you see it from somebody you know or you met. it's like that out there type thing. So
Oh yeah. It's definitely got some love along the way. Okay, so this is replacements, and it's talking about soldiers that come and replace the soldiers who've fallen. I guess I could have just read the first line and you'd get that. Replacements come when soldiers fall, when those you've trained, fought, and bled beside no longer breathe. They come to fill holes before emptiness becomes desolation. They occupy vacancies in squads before squad mates can think too long, before grief rises from its pine box. They step onto one side of a scale to counterbalance the anchor in the other dish. They line up so the unit can march on. They try to share their stories, but no one listens. Not these men with combat patches and hollow eyes. They've come, and that's all that matters. Not the reason, not their pedigree, not even the names stitched in black thread on their chests. A person may be loved and grieved, but a serial number is just a number, digits not much different than those before or after. Soon enough, they'll learn to core out their hearts. They'll come home changed, unrecognizable, or else, like so many before, they'll die and be briefly memorialized. Then others will come to take their place. More replacements, one stenciled name on a footlocker as good as another. The roaring machine must churn. That's a little section from All the Ruined Men.
heavy, but
Yeah.
true, and needs to be said.
And I did try to make sure to put,
Yeah.
there is some light stuff in there as well, but overall it's a heavy theme. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we there are places and times that we need to hear those. Thank you for making it available.
Thank you.
So we're going to wrap up shortly, but I wanted to know, what would you suggest as a starting point for readers that are being introduced to your work? What would you suggest they start with?
Well, if if they're interested in fiction, then obviously all the room in. If it's poetry, I think it depends on what their what their taste is. So, Half a Man and Postscript War, I think those are my best poetry books. But war poetry might grate on someone's sensibilities, and if that's the case, I would suggest going with something else. Virginia Walkabout has all kinds of interesting experiences, adventures, and insights into Virginia, past and present. And I think that's a good one to check out. Human Touch, that one deals with relationships, and a lot of people like relationship poetry. So it's broken into 3 chapters, and one is about familial relationships. You and your mom and dad, or husband, wife, kids. One is about romantic relationships, and the third chapter is about relationships with community. And then Personal Geography, just as the title implies, is kind of mapping out the course of my life. So it's poems from that cover my life.
And that helps, because I was like, it's nice to know what is available and what to expect from each piece, so that people are like, okay, this is what I'm feeling like starting with now.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So, 2 quick things. Well, I'll get to the second one in a minute. Okay, you give workshops and advice to writers. Who gave you advice when you started growing in your career, and how did you improve in your craft?
So many people. My main mentor was and still is Billy Walsh, um, and he doesn't really offer me advice in the poetry arena, but with my article fiction, he's had a lot to say and really given me guidance. In the early days, I had quite a few howlers in there. Carolyn Kreider Ferranda, Ann Chlasky, Nancy Powell, the 3 of them in poetry really helped me out in the beginnings, getting me getting me going, giving me confidence, and letting me know I could improve. And then Terry Cox Joseph and Libby Kurz. I currently every other week I meet with them, and we have an editing session, cover whatever it is we're writing. And so it's nice to have not just someone look over your work and offer support, but also to have that accountability part. Got to have something new written, so for the next meeting. Yeah,
Uh,
and I've gotten help from so many other people, so that's why now I really try to give back.
and like in the last minute, is there a question that you always wish somebody would ask you so that you could share it with someone? And if so, what would you say? Like, even an interview or something dealing with your writing piece?
Uh, oh,
I know this is an on the spot question.
yeah. I caught a little off guard on that one. I can't think of something right off the top of my head. I would just say, not so much a question for me, but the best piece of advice that I can give is that whenever you write something, it doesn't have to be perfect from the outset. As a matter of fact, on my former laptop, I had a little sticker on the top that said "Write crap, edit later." And anything you read that you think is well written and beautiful, it did not start out that way. And it can be liberating knowing that you're going to have to go back and edit later. You don't have to make it perfect from the outset. Just get the story or the poem or whatever it is, get it down, get it out, and then go back. You write with your heart, and you edit with a knife. And that's the best advice that I can give to any writer.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Bill Glose, and I would like to thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you. My pleasure.